All right, we're live. What's up, everyone? Um, Thank you for joining this the Rainmakers Real Estate Podcast, and this is episode 9. And I am joined by Will Castillo. What's up, Will?
What's up, Bobby? Thank you for having me. Hello,
Yeah, man.
everybody.
Thanks for joining. Yeah, Myron won't be able to join this week. We actually had the No One Left Behind challenge this week in Arizona, and so Myron, myself, and David are the rainmakers for the team. So we had like 75 newbies, like fresh, straight new into SubTo, that went out to Arizona and learned how to generate leads, write contracts, comp deals, like from end to end, and calling agents, building rapport, and getting deals. I think we have like 2 contracts that we should be getting signed, cash one in a SubTo deal.
That's so
So
cool.
that'll, yeah,
You have a whole army over there, so that's it's gonna be really cool.
yeah. So Myron won't be able to join today. He's making sure today, like the golden ticket as well. There's going to be a bunch of calls that are being made, so we're just making sure we're underwriting and getting all these deals, through, so that we can, hopefully get some of these things closed. So, but yeah. Anyways, so yeah, man. Thanks for joining. Fellow SubTo Owners Club member, also Gator, and so I met you last year at the Clever Summit, and like one of the first things that you're telling me that you focus on is funnels, lead gen, and automations.
Yep.
And so you have over 10 years of experience in this space, really just from a marketing standpoint, helping to generate leads for businesses, and have been focused as of late more in the real estate space. And so I know automeek.com, right, and automeek is the company that you started, and your goal is to really help businesses scale, and by automation and helping to free up time for business owners so that they can focus on what matters, right? Like up to 10 to 20 hours a week. I was seeing on your website too. So I'd love to dive into that, like how we go through that, but we'll get into that through the episode. But thank you for joining, and yeah, I don't if you want to give a little bit more of a background, and kind of how you got to where you are today in this space.
Definitely. Well, again, thanks for having me, and it's always refreshing talking to the good people that you meet, and especially in this type of format where we get to discuss a lot of cool stuff. So, um, uh, the way that I got here today was through a little bit of, I guess, family, in a way, trauma. My parents went through some issues with their foreclosure with their house here about 4 years ago. Um, they were going through foreclosure to pre-foreclosure, and that's kind of how I got women to like the real estate world. As you said, my background is in marketing, so I've been doing that for 10 years. And when this happened, this kind of situation with my parents, is when I started diving deep into real estate and seeing essentially what do people do in situations like that. So to give you a little bit of that background, my dad lost his job right after COVID. There was a really tough job market at the time, because obviously a lot of jobs started popping up on down here. So it was a lot of competition in the job market. So throughout that time, 2 years of unemployment, trying to figure out how to get a job, he found jobs in Amazon and things like that, but nothing to be able to cover things. He threw a Hail Mary and he called me and my sister to try and help. Thankfully, everything went good. I learned a lot of the process of what the foreclosure process looks like, the pre-foreclosure looks like. But I got to see firsthand what that causes in terms of stress, right? So that dawned on me in terms of like, okay, how do people that don't have family members that can help do this thing? how do they move on, and started doing some research. Popped up the ads from Pays, and that's kind of like how I got into real estate in the first place, through Gator method. And then that took me into the entire funnel. As a marketer, I was like, okay, this sounds really good. I want to see what's behind the curtain, and ended up buying Gator method and buying into the community. And I figured this would be a good step to kind of like dive into that, into real estate. Then I joined. Then I went to Squad Up, which saw the big announcement on Owners Club, and I figured I want to be next to the people that are willing to spend some of their hard-earned income to like learn more, or like be in a more curated space, and that's when I joined Owners Club. Throughout that time, I've learned a lot in real estate, but also I've learned a lot of what actually makes a good community, and everybody usually is very willing to show you the way, or showcase what you can learn from them. Um, and that's what got me here today, and that's how you and I met as well during the Clever Summit. So very happy to be here, and be able to like do some of the things that I've been able to do in the e-com space and the marketing into real estate with some of the investors that I work with.
Awesome. Awesome. And so you have spent, like, in your 10 plus years experience, a lot of it started within the e-commerce space, right?
Yeah.
Ads and things like. So how has that translated into real estate? Like, what are some of the things that you've learned during that time, and what you've been able to translate and bring into this space?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the main things, I mean, across all of marketing is being able to build a database. So when it comes to your customers in ecom, or your contacts, whoever you're reaching out on real estate, you need a good place to have that, like to keep track of things. So one of the main things that I often see, or that I have noticed from different real estate investors, is like they live and breathe by their phone, which is it's a good place to start. But I've translated that into building like micro databases for different people, at least to have a common location to go. So when it comes to like things like your calls, when it comes to things of your contacts, your files, and everything, obviously having a cloud space or storage is number one. And then from there has been more of like, okay, what's the message that I'm trying to provide? So on the e-com side, it's usually a sale, or it's usually a call to action like that. On the real estate, is actually depending on what your angle is. You're either targeting, you're cold calling, or doing one of the outreach channels, or you're doing the inbound side of things. So in that regard, for things that are emerging, is precisely those funnels. So what do people like, when they search your name, or when you're sharing something online, it's like, what's the common call to action, and where you funnel them to, in order for them to know what you do. And a lot of people don't have a clear message on like what they actually their intention is, or their offer is, despite whether you're doing an outreach or an inbound. So that's been a cool thing to figure it out, in terms of like what kind of offers can you do or provide on the real estate side, comparing them to like the sales on the ecom by a product.
Okay, cool. And so, like, what I guess, where are you focused today then? Like, what has been what are you actively doing now?
So through this past year, I went from wholesaling to being okay. I can generate leads, so let me work with the wholesalers. After wholesaling, I moved on into, okay, let me do more of the marketing, more of the operation side of things. And I've discovered that that's kind of like my lane there, the lead gen all the way down to the operations. And although I strive obviously to own my own portfolio and grow my portfolio in that regard for real estate. Right now, what I'm focusing on is on generating leads, or figuring out a way to present an offer, and then funnel things into a CRM or a database. So a lot of it has been more integrated within the AI automation space, which is identifying operations or processes that maybe you as a business owner, you do very manually. I wouldn't call them mundane tasks, but they're like time consuming tasks, that maybe you can automate because you already have like a certain sequence. So I bring that knowledge into the space. Different tools like Zapier, Make.com, N8A. There's plenty of them that you can start using to do this type of work. So that's been my focus is how do I help business owners or real estate investors to scale their businesses. So by removing or kind of like connecting the dots in between like the tasks that they are currently in a way like stuck doing because they're the ones that know how to position themselves or how to move the files over, right?
Mhm.
So that's my main kind of point concentration at the moment in the space.
Okay. Yeah. I know it's like there's so many in this space. There's such a need for this just because it's at first you're just like I want to get the ball rolling, especially a lot of there's such a need for the folks that are closers or visionaries or
Mhm.
like they want to go and make moves, right? They want to make things happen. They want to close deals.
Mhm.
They're trying to raise funds, whatever it is, and the things that they're good at. And there's just such a need across the business to because I'll talk with certain um, visionaries, if you will call them, but like people that are business owners that are still doing a lot of the things themselves. And so, what like when you're stepping into that, what because now that you've been wholesale and maybe have seen behind the scenes on quite a number of teams in this space, like what are some of the common things that you're seeing right away where you can start to improve that with automation? Like where do you see those quick wins and what do you see in common across teams?
Yes, the quickest win I would say is being able to the documentation part of things, um, because I mean there's so much data that gets involved in a transaction or in a communication. So having some sort of way to like track or record your calls is number one, because then what people might not think or they may know but they're not actively doing it is from those calls you can actually analyze a lot of that information with AI now. So one of the implementations is precisely like recordings like this, right? We can turn them into multiple different pieces of information or content that we can extract from. So, for example, when it comes to like wholesalers, right, getting on the phone, once you get on a good phone call and you gather some of that information, you can actually use that transcript to then help you kind of like um, I guess improve on your sales, right? I mean, it kind of like build a sales coaching with a GPT, for example, on ChatGPT to help you get better in those calls, what to look for, what questions to ask, or how to say them. So that's one thing that like I immediately like say that it could be a quick win for people to implement, and it's not that complicated to do. Obviously, it takes a little bit of research to understand it, but what I often encounter is they don't have a way to track that, right? Or they don't have a way to use what they're already creating, because essentially you're creating content. You're just not realizing that it is content. So that's number one. And then the secondary is, okay, do you have the call? Let's say maybe this is more on the outbound side of things. Um, you can do a lot of scraping or research on the person prior to the call, and that's so that it prepares you for the call. So in a wholesaler standpoint or somebody in our dominion at the moment, um, typically is them just get on the phone call with them and then just go for it, right? Usually that's what I would say. Yes, go ahead and do it. Things like prop AI, for example, are another way to like actually scan through those people that maybe or scan through those contact lists that requires understanding whether the phone number is correct or not. That's one of the things that I used a lot of the voice agents for. So that when you do get on the phone call with somebody, it's like, okay, we know that that person is either available on the phone or I have information, background information on them, whether that is like their job, whether that is like their actual information on the property. But you want to be as educated as possible on like their situation, just to like gain an aspect of like what kind of person is it that I'm talking to.
Mhm.
So those I would say are the quickest wins in terms of what you can do today as a wholesaler in that regard, or even any sort of like service-based business.
Okay. Yeah. So and I know you're um, what about on a team that is buying and holding properties, right? So like I know you're focused um, on, so you are helping, you are on a team or working on a team that is focused on buying and holding,
Mhm.
and they're, co-living. So like they have to find their leads, or have to come in, they have to
Mhm.
underwrite them, they have to make a decision, and ultimately then make sure whoever brought them the deal or whatever is getting taken care of,
Mhm.
they're gonna close on this thing. So they have to raise capital, and then the work begins on maybe turning that into a co-living property and all that. So like all those stages is I mean, all of them in itself is a lot of work, right? So like
Mhm.
where have you been able to um create improve or build improvements into that business, or build automations, or uh workflows or funnels, things like that, to really help with that business? um
Mhm.
where have you been able to do that so far?
Yeah, so in the operations side of things, or in, let's just say, after the lead is generated, you get something on the contract, right? As soon as you get something on the contract, you can trigger different actions, like for example, like creating a file for that property, or adding, let's say, the rest of the files that you need on that property in a, let's say, a Google Drive, for example. So a lot of the automations are more to like assist to create the file of the property and then notify the right people in it. So for example, let's say we close on a property today. If it's SubTo, then obviously there's certain documentation that has to happen. If it's a cash deal, then it's a lot more, it's a lot more straightforward compared to if it's a hybrid or seller finance. So all of these things are what I call bundles that you need to create into your business or have documentation for those. Those could be automatically created for you and then submitted to, let's say, either internal or external, the TC that you work with, in order to like bring together that file, right? Or notify your favorite or your preferred um, title office. So things like that are more of a, now we go from one stage to the next. Those things can trigger based on that stage. So a lot of that process and operation can be automated, and it's not like, okay, now that I have this, I got to duplicate the documents, I got to then like I got to fill it out. Like a lot of that information can actually be automated in terms of the filing of the properties and be sent out as a bundle to the people that need to take care of it. That alone, I mean, if you ask any TC if they could have something like that, I can guarantee you they'll probably save hours of work,
Mhm.
just doing that in a weekly basis.
Okay. Yeah. What CRM are you currently working in?
Go high level. It's my
Go high
my
level.
preferred one. Yeah, I
Okay.
have my own white label on Go High Level where I create different processes for people in there.
Nice.
But I like to be kind of like app agnostic. Just because I use Go High Level doesn't mean that it's the best fit across the board.
Yeah.
There's certainly tools outside of Go High Level that will help in the business in its entirety, but definitely Go High Level is the go-to for as a CRM. You can control a lot
Yeah.
of stuff in there.
Okay. Where do you find yourself from like a tech stack? Um, where do you find yourself working in the most right now? Like outside of Go High Level, um, where are you spending a lot of time?
Right now, I've been using a lot of different AI tools because I've been testing a lot of those things out. The one software, I guess, or I wouldn't call it a project management, more like my database creation, is Airtable. It has a lot of really cool functionalities that you can use there for every part of the business. And the cool part of it is that it has an interface, so you can create kind of like an app in there for your business that works just like buttons and actionable steps, like in order for you to build a record. Aside from that one, the other one that I suggest to get familiar with is Zapier. That's probably the most like common that you hear in terms of like automation tools. And the reason for Zapier is because it has a lot of connections to most of the major softwares or SaaS providers. So those are the two in terms of like software. If we want to lean on the AI trend, I would say Notebook LM is my right now my go-to for any sort of like learning or ideation as well, due to the fact that you can like put a bunch of different documents together and then like upload them and then talk back to those documents. So I've been loving Notebook LM.
Oh, I haven't gotten into that yet. Notebook. Also, Airtable. I made a post the other day. I think it was about, yeah, it was Go High Level, and someone reached out and was like, "Hey, are you using Airtable too?" Like, and honestly, I've heard of it, but I haven't really utilized it at all. And so I'm curious, like, why when do you use Airtable? Like, and you kind of explained it, but like use case for let's say a wholesale team, or let's say a buy and hold team, like how can you how would we use Airtable in that instance? Like, what are some ideas, things that we could use that for?
So Go High Level to me, it's always going to be more of like that front end, like the lead gen, the initial communication, or even the communication that you have throughout like the process of a purchase or a sale for that matter in Dispo. So Go High Level to me is more of that like communication tool, right? It's a CRM, it's your database for contacts. Where Airtable comes in is it could be more of a business database. So think of it as a project management tool as well. Um, so a lot of people use Monday CRM for or Monday the platform itself for a lot of that project management. But what I like about Airtable is like it has extremely powerful automations in it. So in here you can connect it with something like Zapier to build that record of, let's say, the property, right? Or build the record for your content, or build the records for a database for your calls. So like it's a really multi. Think of it as Google Sheets in steroids, like crazy steroids. This thing is what you can do in Airtable with functions and different, I guess you could say, setups for the bases is what they call it. Um, it becomes a lot more powerful as you kind of like build the bases, meaning like more contacts, more records in it, and you can make it into pretty much anything. I mean, you can even keep track of interactions in there. You can keep track of stages in there as well. So on Go High Level, we have the pipeline with stages, which can be used to trigger things inside of Go High Level. But when it comes to like going outside, right? Like that's when it becomes a little bit more of a tricky scenario, connecting webhooks and things like that that you might want to use. So for somebody like as you mentioned, like a wholesaler or somebody in the real estate investing, I mean, a lot of it that I use Airtable for is to build a lot of the marketing for the personal brand, which a lot of people kind of like um, they don't really pay attention to when it comes to their business is building them their own personal brand. So I use Airtable for a lot of that, the content side of things as well as the marketing efforts to plan, and then it gets executed either on something like a Go High Level or it gets executed on obviously social media.
Nice. I like. Okay, that's cool. I definitely would. I'd like to see more about that, because I'm like very intrigued with Airtable, and just how to utilize. What are some of the use cases for it, and so that's interesting. The are you starting to pull data out of your CRM and bringing that into anything? Like, have you? I haven't really utilized the APIs or anything like that coming from Go High Level. I'm curious if you've gotten into that, or if you're. I guess really what I'm trying to figure out too is like the tools needed that you like to see, and how you've had success in being able to really make business owners more efficient. Like, what tools can they implement in their own business? And let's say, like, obviously they're go like a lot of the business owners, and if they're selling or they're trying to grow their business, they don't really have a lot of time to do this, and it's not a priority, because obviously the growth is the priority. But like,
Mhm.
what are some of those tools that they should start to use um, to make things a lot easier for them? Like, how are you connecting these tools together to make like that workflow or that funnel of activity, so that things just smoothly flow throughout the business?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. I think I wouldn't start necessarily with a tool, but more like a process.
Okay.
A strategy is it's a strategy over tactics, let's just say. And the reason for that is because if you don't have a process established, no matter whatever tool you have, like I mean, you're gonna have to do two jobs. One is learn the tool first, of course, and then implement whatever you want to do, right? So I would say the priority in a business, and this is why I always try to just execute first, try to like find my way to the end goal or back engineer the end goal. Let's just say it better that way. So that way, at least I have like certain steps that I take. So one of the main things that or one of the things that I'm really good at is connecting the dots. So if somebody was to walk me through their process, I can start thinking about like the different tools that it would like that they will need, or if like maybe like they just need that one tool. Because a lot of it is like if you're not actually like executing on things, then you're not gonna really know what the steps are. If you don't know the steps, then you don't know what to implement. So I would say first start with the process. Sit down and think through literally like sheet of paper or like type it in a doc what your process is, because everybody's system is different. Everybody works in a different way. Some of them you can take as templates, for example, that you can then like modify to your own. But first is the what is the SOP? What is the actual process that you do? Step one, step two, step three. Even if it's like super simple. Okay, step one, create Google Doc. Step two, email so and so. Like just line them all out first, because whatever tool I give you today, it might be kind of a little bit of like shiny object, if you don't have established process, or if you don't know your strategy in order to like acquire to get leads. The systems that get the system itself, it's a process. Then the next thing is, okay, how do we make that process more optimized by using tools? And that's when somebody like me can come in and then like provide you that knowledge.
Yeah, I like that. So let's go through a scenario. If I need to raise capital,
Mhm.
and I'm like, I need to generate lead, like I need to be able to um start to figure out like how can I need to be able to present the deal and do all that, right? But like how do I create a funnel of potential
Mhm.
investors into my deals? And I need help with that, right? And I come to you for that. Like what's your approach there in starting to help me who needs to raise capital start to build that funnel and that system in there, in that process even, to really
Mhm.
help start to drive that forward? Because I know it's all about networking and it's getting out there and building relationships.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But like if it's more like, um even if it's internal, even if it's across my network, I still want to be able to like get myself out there and be able to, when things come in, not lose sight of them and not lose like the visibility into the interested parties and all these things, right? Like my email campaigns, whatever it is. Like what is your thoughts on that? Is that even something that you would like say needs that right away? Like how would you approach that if I were to come to you and say, I need help with generating leads for this to raise capital?
So you could go in a couple different ways. The first thing that I would ask is, okay, what's in your network? Who have you speaking to? Who are your relationships, and where do they live in terms of like their contact, their information, right? So that's why a CRM is definitely needed. Capital raising is you can have a lot of relationships, but you can also do a lot of like when it comes to outreaches, right? And like educating people as to like what is it that you're raising capital on and why is it worthwhile. So um, when it comes to like the personal connections first, right? CRM extremely important for you to have. Sure, you can have your phone and call them, and you have like a system in your contacts, but the CRM is where you kind of like going to be able to build more of the profile and have a lot more information on that contact. That's why again, it's really important to always have a database where you kind of like keep track of that. Second thing is, if you know certain things about your deal, of who it appeals to, right? That kind of deal, for the capital raise. is who of those contacts make that match. Again, it goes back to the CRM, being able to tag those people, being able to know who, what kind of opportunities they like to lend on or be part of. So it's a lot more on that aspect of the relationship. Now, when it comes to the actual outreach to those people, that's where things can get a little bit more automated to get them on calls through email campaigns, or once you have a deal, you want to like present those things to them. This is where adding some automation in terms of like um, um, being able to mass send information to them and still keep it personalized. Okay, so when it comes to automation, a lot of people don't are not using it this way because they might not have the stack, but you could essentially build a automation in Go High Level that when somebody gets they get added to a tag, or you add them into the workflow, you can have the chat GPT within Go High Level actually read through their profiles, read through their actual like history of communication, and then grab that information and then personalize that email outreach to them. So that's the way that I
Like
would
that.
say could be used for capital raising within a tool like Go High Level. That personalization, comes in different ways, but um, you have to build again the structure of what that email looks like, the prompting of that GPT or that like assistant, in order for it to get to that level of customization.
That's good. I like that. I really like that. Yeah, because on the wholesaling side, so we have like we are trying to we're getting in leads, and we're trying to put these deals under contract. We can get them under contract, but really we want to find the end buyer first. But we have a list of buyers, and they have different criteria. And what I want to get to is, as soon as these leads come in, and whether or not we get them under contract, get them under an option contract, or we really just want to send it to an exclusive buyers list that
Mhm.
maybe it's not under contract yet, but this buyers they've signed an NDA, and they're on our exclusive list. We want to be able to get these properties out to them, and in a way where it's a text and it's an email,
Mhm.
right? And then if they don't have interest within like whatever 24 hours or something, we don't hear back, or they say whatever, we want to be able to then start to maybe push that to like Facebook, or other mediums, to say like, hey, we got a property, it's either coming soon, or hey, this is available, looking for homestead buyers, like looking for people that can't qualify for traditional loan, and we can help put you in a home. And so that's like what I'm trying to focus to what you just said there, like the personalized, that right there is the next piece of like, as soon as you move it into a stage, now like a blast goes out and says, hey, we got one,
Mhm.
take a look at it, all that stuff. So I like the personalization with the chat GPT. That's a good one.
Yeah, yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah. One thing that I do from my calls is I have an I wouldn't call it an agent, it's an automation that essentially reads through my transcripts and then provides me with what the highlights from my guests were. That way I can always refer back to them on my emails, or refer back to them on my next call, like ask them about like, how did that situation go, or it's just more, if it brings you closer to that person because you're paying attention, right? And sometimes on the day to day, obviously you might not remember that, but if before the call you read your file with that person, and you're able to like identify things that maybe you spoke last time and bring those up, that usually brings another level of like closure with that person, or another level of like attention to detail with them. So it might sound disingenuous, but in reality it's like you're just assisting yourself to be able to build more of a connection with whoever you're speaking to.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, cool. Well, let's I want to just pivot into like AI. We talked a little bit before we went live, but the amount of tools that are coming out, like how are you, um, like what are you currently using? Because we were talking about like Replit
Mhm.
and some of the things that are coming out. Because Myron and I were talking yesterday, and Myron sent something that he found is like over 400,000 applications
Insane.
are deployed to production for Replit. And that's insane. That's so wild. Like last month, just a
Yeah.
month. And so it's insane to think about, and how many things are going to be coming up. And like, I just would like to get your thoughts on, or like, what are you currently using? What are you excited about using? And then also, like, what does that mean for future, on how fast things are being created, especially when we talk about software or applications or like tools for people to use. Like, anybody can now spin something up and replicate things. And so like, where is that going? So I guess I'd like to get your thoughts first on just what are you using? What are you excited about using right now?
Definitely. So to piggyback on what you said, the 400,000 deployments. So, you might immediately think, oh my God, these are products people are selling. But it's funny because like I've used Replit to deploy tools that I'm using myself. So let's say a budget tracker that I just want to be able to not necessarily connect to my database. I use Notion as my main project management tool. So to connect with that tool, in order for me to like just ask the questions pretty much. So, and it goes back to the databases. But as far as like the tools that I've been using lately, I mean, I've fallen in love with everything that Google has been doing. I mean, the recent Google I/O gave really cool updates. So Gemini has been kind of like one of the main tools that I'm using. And the reason for that is its ability to do deep research. And then I combine it with ChatGPT did research as well to give me like a really solid, I guess you could say, analysis of whatever I'm looking for. So in that regard, like today's day and age, you can now think of an idea, research it, and then deploy it. Deploy an MVP or a prototype within a couple hours. I mean, we were literally talking about this before. So that to me is incredible. That to me is phenomenal. It is worrisome as to like how much you can create because you can disrupt things really fast. But at the same time, you need distribution for that. So again, building an audience, building a personal branding, it's really important if you're gonna go to market with something like this. But yeah, Google has been a really in-depth, something that I've been going really deep into. AI Studio, I mean, all of their tooling is incredible, and especially if you have Google Workspace already, that you already paid for, probably you probably already have um, all these tools available for you. You might just don't know it because it is really low key. Like Google has been really low key about their releases. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's one that I'm using a lot. We discussed a little earlier about Notebook LM.
Yeah.
So what I use it is for like education first, but also I'm able to practice in there for. I think one of the examples that I use is like being like a sales coach, right? So you can grab a lot of different. I mean, this is something that I tell people to use. Go on YouTube and find 10 different videos on one topic, right? Because everybody's going to explain it differently. Grab those videos, put it into Notebook LM, and it will read the transcript, it will read everything that the content of that video, and you can chat with all of that content. On top of that, you can actually generate an audio. I don't know if you saw a few months back. Well, I don't know if it's a few months back now or a year. Um, this audio of like the podcasts.
Yes, I've
Have
seen
you
it.
heard that? That
Yep.
that comes from Notebook LM, or you can generate one with Notebook LM, where like you can, those content pieces that you share, you can actually listen to a podcast between two people, and they have a beta version where you can actually jump on that podcast with them and start
That's wild.
interacting with them.
That's so
So
great.
yeah. So I started using that for my agency, my ads agency, my ecom site, because I'm like, if I could talk to my ideal buyer persona, what would they tell me, right? Because you might have a lot of customers, but I'm not gonna be calling Sally from Fort Lauderdale, because I don't know, like that's creepy. A company calling a customer like that, right? Unless you
Mhm.
schedule something. So I'm like, okay, let me grab all these different buyer personas, put them up, and then like start this podcast, and then ask it to act as some of my buyer personas. And then now you have this conversation that you have with them where you can like understand a little bit of like their behavior, or you can understand, make it's assumption based at the end of the day. It's not like perfect math, but like you can already start like thinking a little bit more when you're getting on the phone with that person, or dealing with an agent that is not the best agent to deal with at the beginning. How to get into their good side, or how to negotiate with them. So that is something that I've been playing with a ton, just to like feel better about my next steps and my actions.
I like that. That's really good. Um, the I have not used a lot of Google's AI tools really at all, and so I'm gonna look up some of those and uh, and dive into them just to see, because I've been using ChatGPT, use Replit, I'll use Manus. I've been
Mhm.
using Manus, and then uh, really that's it. Like I've been using those, and it's been great. It's been great to be able to use that. And then I've been using the Pace GPT. I don't know if you got
Yeah, yeah,
into that. It's pretty
yeah.
good.
It's pretty good.
Um, it's pretty good. Like I've been having conversations about negotiating cash deals, like how to overcome certain objections. So kind of to your point of like,
Hmm.
and you build a database of people that know how to sell, or know how
Hmm.
to market, or know whatever. It's like you get those people that are just like, oh man, are amazing podcast interviewers or something like that, and you
Yeah.
just start to learn from those folks. It's so good. That's really good. You're like building um, yeah, you're just building that database of people uh, that you like. And yeah, the one thing too, the ChatGPT, and I know a lot of the tools are doing this, like the memory and things. Because this morning I'm like, uh, I haven't brought up something on the podcast for ChatGPT in a while, so I was like, "Hey, do you know I have a podcast?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's the Real Estate Rainmakers Podcast. It's about X, Y, and Z." So I'm like, "Cool. I don't have to prompt it every time." I
Yeah.
know this is like old, but a lot of people don't really realize like the memory that these things are bringing to the table, which is so good, because then you literally, one, you don't have to keep repeating yourself and remember a prompt
Hmm.
that you have to keep feeding it to give it the context before you ask it something. But
Right.
you can, it's starting to learn more and more about how you talk, how you communicate, so that now content can start to sound like you, right?
Right.
So um I think that's so interesting, and something I want to do more of is like LinkedIn. I was watching Dustin's stuff, like what he focused on with LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm like, dang man,
He's good
I
at
need
he's good
to,
with it.
yeah, I need to get on that. And really I want the stuff that to sound like me. I want to be able to speak into it, because it's hard for me to write. I'm not a great like writer. It takes me too long to
Hmm.
do, because I don't do it a lot. And so I'm like, I want to just be able to speak my thoughts and my structure and all that stuff, and then piece it but sound like me. And so those tools are pretty good at doing that. I'm not sure if you found tools to be better at others in doing that in particular, right? When you're trying to create
Right.
written content or something, but you want it to sound like you and not like a
Right.
robot.
Right. So one thing that I would suggest is grab as many transcripts from your calls as you can. Again, building the database is going to be, I call it the mini brain, where you save everything into like a one folder, and then with those transcripts, you can actually connect them to something like a Claude that is really good at writing, and then build your kind of like your writing style or your voice tone or things like that, and then you use that, like create a prompt in order for it to like give you whatever you're trying to write, like if it's social media content or whatever the case may be. um, but yeah, you can definitely, I would suggest definitely grabbing those transcripts and start saving them, because that's kind of like where a lot of these, um, I guess, again, the mini brain, right, for these actors that you're building. So when I go into a business, I go first into what is it that they currently have, what are the processes, what are the SOPs and things like that. Try to make sure that everything is organized into a base, and then go from there as far as like depending on their needs, what to build.
I like that. I'm just writing down those notes. I'm definitely going to do that. I'll sit down and take all the transcripts and the things that I have, and put them into one folder, and
Okay.
that way I'll always be able to reference that.
Mhm.
instead of relying on ChatGPT to be that, which I know it can do. I've connected it to my Google Drive for our business, which is great. And now I realize, because I have my SOPs, what we were trying to do is when we're hiring like VAs for my short-term rental business, what we were trying to do is like, can we put all of our documentation, all of our things, the SOPs, all that into a folder, and then just like allow our VAs or anybody on the team really to access that as a knowledge base, and like get your answers here, right? Like you don't have to go flip through things like that. Ultimately is, and because then I want my guests, honestly, guest communications, they're getting close, but they're not there yet. And being able to communicate with guests based on what they're saying.
Oh, for your Airbnb business, right?
Yeah. Like Guesty has some stuff, like the PMS system has some things built in. It's not there yet. But it does pretty good. And it's like, man, that's going to be in itself. Then all you really have to figure out is vendor communications and things like that, which I saw a video of a robot cleaning a house and it did an amazing job. I'm like, dang, you imagine rolling out robots to your Airbnb business, like how quickly and efficient. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's when you think about it at the at the level of like the innovation, it's really cool. I always keep I always have a mindset, okay, it's cool, like what's being built, what I can build with it. In the back of my head is like, how many people are going to be disrupted, right? Because now their jobs might be in jeopardy for something like this. And this is why like having these discussions help, because they need to understand like how to use the tools. So like right now it's like just front loading as a lot of these like information is like beneficial for those who are listening, and for those that need that little bit of like guidance in terms of like where to go for the AI stuff, where to go and what kind of tooling to use. Because realistically speaking, I mean, pretty much every job is in jeopardy in the next 5 to 7 years. I will, at the speed that things are going, I would say even less. So that's why it's important to gain the skill set first, and build relationships. So that way, like when that time comes, you already are a little bit more prepared and what to do.
Yeah. And to your point, the big thing, and this is what I was talking with Myron yesterday too, we were going back and forth about like, because of, you can no longer just build a software. This has always been a thing with software, and that it can always be outdone and somebody will come in and disrupt it. But now it can be disrupted even quicker. So I love the call out of like distribution is what matters. Yes. Like building your brand, like you are the person that put these out, right? Like people buying Tesla because of Elon, like Elon has built up his brand or whatever, like it's that there's a lot of electric cars out there too. So my thought is like all these tools are here, but the distribution of these things and building up your brand, the networking, the relationships is going to be so key. So I really like that. That's a great takeaway.
Yeah, definitely. But one of the things that I'm focusing is the build out of tooling in order to help you create more. I started my initial steps on that, but I have to implement it myself now, because the hardest part is actually putting the content out. It's a little, I found it that long form is actually a little bit easier to have because you get to have a conversation. But the trick is actually grabbing that long form and converting it into different other pieces, right? Like how to essentially take the best takes from this conversation and put it into different formats of media. So it's going to be a really cool way to also distribute your knowledge, as you kind of like get out there and start posting your stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I'm looking forward to seeing that develop, to see what you coming up with. So okay, cool. Well, man, thank you so much for jumping on and talking through this. I'd like to, where can people reach you? And I know in automeek.com, right? Like there's a form you can fill out to have a conversation with you, but like where do you want people to connect with you? How can they connect?
Connect with me on Instagram, at it's Will Castillo. You'll see there me posting a little bit more of what I do, a little bit more information on the AI toolings that I'm building as well. And I would love to connect with you there and right now I'm looking for 5 new businesses or business owners that are looking to improve their systems and see what we can do together in order to automate some of your processes and workflows. Um, so yeah, just DM me on Instagram at it's Will Castillo, and we'll be in
Oh,
touch
too
there.
many L's. One less L. Cool. Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you again for jumping on. I like talking through this stuff with you, and honestly, I now I'm gonna go back and start to get all my transcripts and bring those together because I think that is like the biggest thing, low hanging fruit that I
Mhm.
can easily do and start to implement like today. I like that.
Yeah, most definitely.
Cool, man. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Oh, my pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Thanks everybody for listening. And next week we'll be on. Myron and I will be on for episode 10. All right.
Nice.